So
maybe it's the form of the file she used or something.
All right, so I'll introduce us. Again, my name is Donovan Neal, acting director of the Status Initiative and host of Soul Mechanics, and I am once again introducing our resident sexpert, most glorious and wonderful and talented, should we say, divinations expert also, and metaphysical correspondent, kind of, I suppose we could say, Miss Merovingian, as she's calling herself, Madam Norianne Holly. So I suppose we'll be talking.
I'd like to introduce my everything.
Say what?
I said you could just say I'd like to introduce my everything. So she does this, she does this, she does that.
I want to talk about. I forgot what we were what we decided to talk about before, because so much shit happened between then and now. So I think it's important that we talk about the BDSM shit, because there's attachments to that have to do with the works I'm doing with principal dynamics.
Okay.
So, I'm going to go ahead and let you open it up, because I'm thinking you're more knowledgeable in this field. I can say that I run into it in places that I would rather not have, and I'll get to that after we start talking. But go ahead and tell me what exactly, go ahead and explain to the audience what exactly I mean when I say that. What is this BDM culture? What's going on there?
Well, BDSM is a combination of, I would say, 3 separate ideas, 2 separate cultures. BD is, of course, bondage, and SM is sadomasochism. Sadomasochism stems from Marquis de Sade, which I believe it's the 1400s. He was imprisoned in France, and he was a masochist, also a bit of a sadist, but he's the first known case study of that, and that is why the term is itself. They are like different ends of the spectrum. However, they are connected. Some people are sadists and masochists, and some are just one or the other. There is actually a personality disorder. You can have a masochistic personality, and a lot of people don't even realize that is when you follow paths knowing that you're leading to your own destruction, and you can't help it, but it's pleasurable to you. Now, to be a sadist, you enjoy causing pain or inflicting pain to others, and to be a masochist, you enjoy receiving the pain. Bondage is completely different. Bondage is, it has to do with trust. A lot of times they are combined, and for the most part, the sadist is typically the dominant partner, and the masochist is the submissive. But just like all things in sexuality, the roles can be reversed and switched up. There are ideas that conflict about who is in control in an SM situation. So the dominant is viewed as the person who ultimately controls the situation, but they have started to argue that it's actually the submissive who controls the situation, because they're handing themselves over to the dominant.
That would certainly be the case in a trusting relationship where it's actually being used in a positive way. That would certainly be the case. The submissive is in control. I should like to say, and of course, I've been involved in shit like this before. I've been tied up, but I don't get into. I've got a few girls that I've dated that are like, they want me to hurt them, and I can't do it. So that's ultimately actually what ended the relationship. They were so into this masochistic or this. It seems like, for me, it comes across as a victimization complex, where, because I see it in I've dealt with some of the students that we've had with the initiative, some of the younger kids, they're high school students, a lot of them, and they're doing this at young ages. They're obsessed with this, being hurt, being tied up, being whipped, and the whole daddy thing. And it's like, these are kids that are doing this, and it's an outbreak everywhere. And it really seems like, to me, it seems like a victimization complex spreading around, and it's kind of creepy and frightening, actually. But in a relationship that's organized, wherein they're actually, responsible adults doing this for healthy reasons, that would be the case. Submissive is in control. But
well, psychologically speaking, these patterns are ingrained in us in childhood years and formative years. This has always been a young type shit's just now being talked about. One of Freud's case studies was on this. There are certain ages where you have to cut off corporal punishment to your children. It is the age of 9 for boys and about 11 for girls. If a parent continues to provide corporal punishment, to inflict corporal punishment to a child past those years, it does turn into a sexual frustrated energy. And there's also a connection between the dopamine release and that starting the disease of addiction. That's why people cut themselves.
Yes,
when a child is spanked, it does produce dopamine, it dumps it, and the more sensitive addict types of people will respond to that in rather negative ways. It's another unspoken reason why hitting your children is actually very bad.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's tough to say. I mean, hurting your children, certainly. Punishing them in the ways that we were punished as kids. I mean, I got my ass beat a lot, like hard, but never broke anything, never hurt too bad, no serious like bruising or anything, but I got beat by my dad a lot. But he was abusive. My father was an alcoholic. He was abusive to my mother and I. But I'm talking about just when he's like punishing me for doing something that, he considered wrong, not the actual like abusive aspects. He never hurt me, but I'm thinking that maybe, because we used to have that shit in school where even teachers could punish children in that way. That was a little bit much. That was crossing a line for sure, in my opinion. But
well, a lot of abusive parents fall into the 5 stages of the cycle of abuse, and that creates a bond that isn't healthy. And a lot of times that's actually what's happening in the sexual areas. When a parent abuses a child, they kind of break them down, and there can be physical punishments, and then the parent doesn't let anyone else come in to save the day. They go in and they usually comfort the child, and when you comfort a person who is broken, they build a stronger bond with you.
Yeah, makes sense. That's where to speak to something else. Oh, there's a couple other issues that we can roll into this one. Not necessarily entirely on the BDSM culture. That's an issue I want to raise because, again, I think there's a serious victimization complex problem there with the kids it seems fishy because it's just that's all of them are doing it now. And I've met, like, when I was a kid, it was every now and then you'd see that, but I'm seeing it everywhere now, and it's very
no good drugs anymore, Donovan. They've taken all the good drugs. That's all it's about, we're a culture of addicts, and that's fine, that's fine, but you have to be addicted to healthy things. And that is why they are doing the things with Tide and condoms and cinnamon, because they want to feel. All an addict is a person who wants to feel. It's always people who are hypersensitive. When they started to take away all the, opiates off of the market, everyone got into heroin, and then heroin's killing people. They're taking that all away. Drugs and pain both release just about the same amount of dopamine, and it is a very addictive substance, probably the most addictive other than adrenaline. So that is why it has become so prevalent. And I know it's been common a lot longer than we know, because my own sister, she was doing that, and she is about 43 or 44 years old, and all of her children do that as well.
Wow.
It's really just part of the addictive nature of us, which does come from holes in the heart chakra. So all the addictions are the same, whether it's drugs, work, exercise, hoarding, overeating. It's all the same energy and all the same addiction. And a lot of times, you have to mix and match your candies. In the bedroom, when you're dealing with people of an addictive nature and a sensitive nature, and a lot of times the people who are addicted to pain are addicted to pain because they are not addicted to drugs. Because if you were on a drug, when you experience intense pain, that push of dopamine does not overpower the push of dopamine from the drugs. Like if you ever got a tattoo and you were under the influence of much, you didn't get that extreme dopamine rush. If you go and get a tattoo and you are sober, it is one of the best feelings that you could possibly hope to experience. So we're in the drug culture. People would say, they like a little marijuana with their cocaine. In the sex culture, sex is a drug and pain is a drug. So when you combine them, it is, max pleasure.
And I imagine that there's to add in, I remember I got mine. It was an adrenaline rush to get mine. I gotta show that because it's our symbol. But I was drunk though. I went to an AA meeting drunk, and I met up with an old friend. He took me home, and he was practicing with a pen at home, a fucking ink pen, and he's become a really good tattoo artist now. Mine was kind of shitty, but it's awesome. I love it. I'm not saying it's shitty. If he's watching, sorry, dude, your tattoo's awesome. He offered to touch it up too, but I like it. I think it looks like graffiti. But what was I gonna say? I smoke and I do addictive things. We all have addictions. I suppose we could say that the video should be about addiction in and of itself. But I also want to touch on the thing with the BDSM culture. I think that touches down on our ideas about purplers. But when we talk about purplers, we most often talk about females because that's where we see it most. It's actually rare that we run into male purplers. But the male side, talking about their problems, not like, how we talk about the indigo children and such, and they're so talented, they have all these abilities, they're wonderful people, but the ones that go south, the bad ones, bad technically, we find these kids that are addicted to victimization, and then we find these on the other side, on the male spectrum, we find these ones that are the incels that are just addicted to hatred, and you know what I'm talking about, the incel community? Yeah, that's something I want to talk about. That's actually how I opened up this course. I did a video on that, responding to a girl who was doing a video on it. But I'm not sure that it scares me. I don't know a lot about it. It's very scary though. It's to introduce that to the audience. If you don't know, this incel community, I guess it's a bunch of dudes who they never got laid, and they're really, they have angst built up about it. And they're just, I don't want to say that they're assholes, but obviously they're assholes. They would have gotten laid if they weren't being assholes, I'm sure. But they didn't get laid. They got pissed off about it, and now they gather on the internet and they talk about murdering girls. But they talk about hurting women, hating women. There's this one dude who went out, I don't remember when, I said it in the other video, this dude went out and killed a bunch of people, and he became like their hero. Like, he went out and shot people, mass shooting, and these incels treat this dude as though he's a heroic figure to them, and they talk about doing what he did, and that's scary shit, and that fits into the sexual community, or the sexual conversation.
Well, many people don't know where the sexual response comes from in the bodies, and male sex response stems from the first chakra, and female sex response stems from the second. There are females who have a first chakra sexual response, but also in the first chakra is the murder tendency, the anger, the hate.
Yeah, because that's just that's the hunter-gatherer chakra there, basically.
And you're hitting on the right thing there, saying if these guys would have gotten laid, they wouldn't have had that problem. The thing is, if you have an overactive chakra, it's going to express itself any means necessary. So if, do you really think a man who goes out and rapes women can easily get sex?
Can you say that again?
Don't tell. I said she's my dominant, so she gets to do whatever she wants.
But do I think a guy who rapes women what?
Do you think a man who goes out and rapes women actually gets sex? Like, do you think that that's all it is? Because a lot of the things that are coming out in the world today with this incel culture are things I've dealt with in the fantasy world, because I was a fantasy artist for several years. The things that we fantasize about are typically viewed as tragedies if we were to have them in our own life. And it's okay to fantasize about anything you want. Some of the most common fantasies are things of the incestuous or pedophilic nature. Now, what is happening is people all of a sudden think it's okay to do these things and to talk about doing these things. I was reading an article yesterday about some guy in Virginia that's running for some sort of office, and he's constantly talking about the murder and rape of women and children. I do not know why this is being so widely accepted. I think a lot of the hits it gets on the internet are for shock value. I to look up the difference between infidel and incel, because I'm not quite sure. The words seem very similar to me, and I know, when Islam worshippers call us infidels, I have to wonder if it's because we're not into the pedophilia and abuse of women in our culture. But anyway, all the things that are becoming prevalent in the world right now are really an atrocity, and it's because the shared information. It's because a couple years ago they announced that pedophilia was a natural sexuality.
Yeah.
It's a mentality, but it needs to stay in fantasy, because once you do these things, the mind becomes poison and it can never be healed. And it really just corresponds to the incredibly overactive first chakra.
Yeah, we could say therein, you hit a primary value there. We could say that there is no actual evil in the world, but there are people who become addicted to things that are unacceptable, And
Yeah, I do not find anything unacceptable that happens between consenting adults. You touched on the fact that you could never, pursue relationships with these women who wanted you to hurt them. I had a hard time when I was doing mistressing. I had a hard time breaking people down and being very mean. You have to put yourself in the understanding that that's pleasurable to them.
Right.
And it's much easier when you're just doing it with words, like myself. But I think a lot of that has an inner fear quality to it. Like maybe you were afraid to explore that because you might find enjoyment in it.
Oh, well, that's a possibility for sure. But I mean, at face value on the surface, it's just, I understand that they enjoy it, but it's something that kind of hurts me, because I mean, like I said, I grew up where my father was abusing my mom, and that's something that men hurting women, that's going to be the trigger. That's going to be one of the things that really pisses me off. One of the very few things that pisses me off. It's intolerable in my sight. Now, I've thought about it. I've thought about giving it a shot, especially with that one girl I was talking about in the last video, the trans girl. She wanted that too, and I really thought about it because I felt for her hard, and I still felt for her. She's probably going to be watching this. Hello. But yeah, I don't know. I considered it, and you know what? If I did find it pleasurable, then so be it. But I wouldn't that. It's not really crossing a line there, but some people are crossing a line. When they cross the line, if they get into pedophilia, they get into murder. The brain gets corrupted. They get addicted to something that doesn't play. Something that's breaking the game. breaking the rules.
It's all correlated to a display of power. You know, they've proven that murderers really kind of get off on displaying power and control over another person right up to the point of when to stop breathing. It's really the extreme of the first chakra, and when you go into the lesser parts of a person enjoying pain in the bedroom, I don't know of any adults who grew up without being abused or treated poorly, victimized, who don't actually feel they need that in the bedroom, you know, because if you've never had it, it's not on your mind.
You know, something I can say, when I was younger, it's not something I've gotten into more recently, but when I was younger, I was into being the submissive one with a few girls.
Yeah, I think it's more natural and probably more acceptable from a judgmental standpoint for men to be in the submissive role. Of course, they do get made fun of, but the true submissive men like that even more.
No, go ahead and make fun of me. I'm submissive to you. Not you, them. That's somebody else. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that culture. I think that culture is completely separate from the incel culture because
I think it was a similar value in play, a similar construct in play. I didn't mean to say that they were linked up. Obviously,
well,
they're not.
The difference is one has permission and one doesn't. You know, and I'm not so sure. Like I said, do you really think the brutal rapists and murderers are actually able to attain women on their own? You know, everyone thought Ted Bundy was very attractive, but I was watching a thing on him, and he portrayed himself as kind of a ladies' man. But when his childhood friends talked about him, they said, you know, typical type things, like he was a complete outcast and clumsy and was an extremely late developer with the ladies.
I've heard that he did actually pick up, if I'm thinking of the same one, or no, I'm thinking of the Boston Strangler. He picked up girls from bars, and actually my roommate knew one of the girls that he picked up, but she got away. Like, her friend told her, this guy's really creepy, don't go with him, and they ran away. They ditched him, and it turned out to be him, the Boston Strangler.
I don't think the personality types are the same. I think that if the men are cunning enough to hunt a woman and capture her and kill her, I don't actually think that it's the personality type who would really enjoy anything consensual. But that really needs to be kept separate from any sort of BDSM culture, because the minute we try to combine them, it will give them justification to exist.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, we don't want to combine them. We're just touching on differing topics, I guess, related at the core.
Yeah, chakra related, you know.
But you pointed out that it's going to be the chakra, the survival chakra, the hunter-gatherer chakra at the bottom, at the root, that triple burner that's causing them that's freaking out. And then, of course, when you have the power play, and again, with the victimization thing and the BDSM culture in general, I think that another thing they have that's an addiction is the fear of it, the trust, obviously the trust, like the submissive person is going to be trusting to a certain extent, but I mean, there's always going to be that fear that maybe they can't trust him, and I think they kind of get off on that. I know it's something I would. I can be an adrenaline junkie if I cut loose. I have to kind of keep myself down on that. I have to regulate that and not allow myself to get hooked on that, because I do get myself hurt really bad all the time. But
adrenaline is more addictive than dopamine, I have found. That's why you can die when you quit drinking. But I don't think that a healthy BDSM relationship has any fear in place.
One that's cultivated for sure. Yeah.
What?
One that's cultivated, one that's honest and constructed, like you said, a healthy one. Yeah. With the kids, though, I mean, and I don't know though, because I've done interviews with a lot of the girls, the younger girls who are into this, and they seem to treat it as though it's a game, like they're just having fun with it, like, and it scares me because these are students of mine, and I'm thinking they're putting their lives in danger because they're with guys. These are not like, they're not in high school dating some jock, you know. These are girls that are going after much older guys that they don't really know a lot about, and that's what scares me about it. I don't want to say anything bad, like say that it's addiction to sex or sex junkies are bad in any way, because I used to be one. I still kind of am. I do go to the club from time to time. I am addicted to sex, but it's not, for me, it's not to the point where I would, like, if I were a kid, I'm not going to hook up with some random adult stranger, but they are, and that's what freaks me out about it, is that the aspect that they're kind of just totally reckless with it, you know what I mean?
I don't think a whole lot of fear comes into play. You know, it's kind of like when a person is buying drugs, how often are they concerned with fear? They're going after what they want. They do want that trust bond, and, you know, it is a shame. I surely hope they would put some sort of research into this, but you don't really hear, like, the people who come right out and announce themselves as a sadist or a masochist are kind of out there in the public. If you tell me of an incident where a young woman met any sort of man who was displaying that interest and he killed her, I have yet to hear about that. It's usually the men who are displaying the "I won't hurt you" image that actually takes a life.
Right, yeah.
People that are right out in the open about that are generally pretty safe.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying it's something that worries me. That's the thought that I have going through my mind, is I'm afraid, and, you know, but I'm afraid of it. I worry about everybody. Anybody who's watching, chances are I'm worrying about you right now. I don't worry about Nori, she's a badass, but I worry about most of the rest of you. And I worry about the students in school. I worry about that with the fucking school shootings. It's like they can't protect their students, you know. It's like people can walk into school with a fucking fully automatic, at least a semi-automatic weapon. It's everything's frightening, and we're letting it all get out of hand. And I don't want to jump on the fucking media bandwagon, but I mean, we do have these, like you said, people have fantasies, and they can have any fantasies they want. It's going to be, you know, I haven't had like murder fantasies before. I guess I can imagine people doing that, but we have games like the fucking Grand Theft Auto and shit, which the games are cool, but I mean, people are running around just shooting people in the streets. At the very least, they get to vent that in the game, I suppose, to some extent. But I think it is encouraging, that line of thought. And there are kids out there who've shot like the pizza delivery guy and said, "We're playing GTA in real life." Like, they actually said that. I've seen that happen a couple times. I mean, it's getting out of hand in that sense, but I think we need to touch at the core of it, because what you said about the chakra system, that's where it's all coming from. That chakra system, those catalyst events, that's where everything's coming from. That those are what cause everything. Your physiology, your neurology, your chemistry, your psychology, everything's emanating from these catalyst events at the core of you. And they're so simple, but people don't know about them. We're not taught about them in Western culture. It's not hidden from us, but it's not presented, and people don't take it seriously. You know, in most Eastern, at least far Eastern cultures, they're going to look into that first. That's going to be their go-to. Is check if the chakras are in alignment, deal with the meridians, do energy work before you prescribe any medication. You know.
Well, in America, I think it's all kind of hidden information, because our whole entire country is run by a pharmaceutical corporation.
Right. Our fucking country is a pharmaceutical corporation.
When we're speaking of sexuality and, you know, men and women and the sexual responses it's a well-known fact that the number one culprit behind a healthy man who experiences ED is anxiety. And anxiety is actually part of that first chakra too. So you really have to have like an even balance of, well, all the chakras should be evenly balanced ideally, but to behave and act and perform appropriately in any of the designated areas, the chakra does need to be balanced. Otherwise, it goes into the extreme of either end. I think when you care too much, you suffer anxiety, and when you care too little or about the wrong things, you suffer murderous rage. And when you're healthy and balanced in the middle, you can enjoy a healthy life. And as far as the second chakra goes, which is the female sex response, that's the seat of emotions. And in order for a woman to climax, they don't really climax physically. They have to have an emotional bond. A lot of women do delve into S&M or bondage because, bondage, that's, a related term because it does create a bond. However false that bond is, it does help women to experience pleasure.
Something I'd like to point out here, get off my chest right now before we go ahead, is that that bondage and that trust, that trust, having that trust bond and being trusting, and then having at least the implication in play that you're being trusting, a sense of loyalty, a sense of danger, but trust that the other person is going to cooperate properly. That's going to hit the heart chakra. And that's going to take that anxiety from the root to the heart, which is coming close to what Tantra does, which is what we should make another video specifically on Tantra. But that's going to be like making an attempt, however unconsciously, at activating the Kundalini, at bringing that impulse up and opening up those chakras, which when you do that, when you have those chakras open and that impulse is loose, essentially you have what amounts to a panic attack or an anxiety attack. You have anxiety, anxious energy, but it's something you use. It's something you can make use of, and it doesn't scare you. It doesn't harm you. It's not like it's a tension that you can make use of that's in your body all the time, and it's no longer something that's driving you in the wrong direction. So that's pretty much, because I'm thinking a lot of people are going to have that impulse spontaneously awakening now, left and right. It's like a resonance effect where they come across each other and it bursts because their frequencies are resonating, and that's going to be what's driving a lot of it, is people having their chakras imbalanced, and this impulse is just popping off all over the place. Each and every chakra is going to have a whole world of consequences attached to it.
Well, people need to know that having balanced and aligned chakras will not happen through sex. You have to do things other than that to experience the throes of pleasure in either sex response and have it based on trust and whatnot. That will not actually do anything for your chakra. However, it will do something for your pleasure. You would actually have to combine chakral meditation and mindful awareness in order to make the Kundalini rise. But it is a quicker way to pleasure, especially for women. And I think that's probably why it's typically women in the bondage.
Sorry, I forgot to say that's where women have an orgasm. I'm thinking, I'm not a woman, obviously. I don't know for sure, but I do know what I felt when the Kundalini is activated, when you open up those chakras, at least to a certain extent. Mine aren't perfectly balanced. I'm not perfect, but I did get it open. I did actually, as I've told you guys before, I was really severely damaged by it. I went through 10 years of fucking surgery, major surgeries, and being just beat up in every possible way, and just having the hardest fucking life you could imagine before I finally got control of it. But when it is active, when you do actually get it going, you'll know it. It's not like an adrenaline rush. You have an adrenaline rush and you have that anxious energy, but what it feels like when you actually get it going is like that orgasm that you feel at the root in your testicles and in your penis, that rises all the way up your spine and lights up your whole body, feels that orgasm. And I'm imagining that women have that when they actually climax during sex. Is that what your climax is feeling like?
Well, I've studied this, and most men don't understand that ejaculation is separate from orgasm. And because a male orgasm is not something that men typically forget. They are incredibly rare, but they are actually needing the second chakra to be kind of activated or, involved. I studied this for a couple years, and I never found a man who experienced an actual orgasm unless it was with a woman who truly loves. And the male orgasm, it creates a different response from a woman, temporary paralysis, numbness in the face, loss of consciousness sometimes. But the male sex response, what that means is, they can be pretty satisfied, and then the female, she does need the emotions tied in. For the male to experience the orgasm, he does have to have strong emotions tied in. And also, not very many men experienced it when they were actually in the dominant position. But if you were to do tantra and whatnot, then it does go all the way up. It's kind of like sex magic when you bring, the kundalini all the way up through the crown. But otherwise, you do feel it throughout your whole body. But just having an orgasm does nothing for your upper chakras unless you are mindfully pulling the kundalini up.
Well, I'm thinking that because of the fact that when I did activate it, that's what it felt like, an orgasm. And mind you, anybody who's practicing this, we're gonna have to get into this. I'm gonna convince Nori to help me teach you guys about opening up the chakras. But being that I did feel it as though it were an orgasm, and what I was saying is that if you're doing this, if you do practice this and you feel that orgasm rising, it's gonna be overwhelming. It's gonna feel like something you can't handle. And I mean, I guess it's up to you whether you stop or go ahead, but you got to press ahead. It's the same as any other challenge where you get to the point where it seems unbearable, you got to press through. But when it does get to the top, you will have an experience that it's not the same thing as the DMT experience, but there are similar aspects to it. Like when it got to my crown, it was like I saw the life in the world light up. And it was like the world was looking at me. Suddenly I became aware that the whole world was alive and just right in front of me, watching me, communicating with me. You know what I mean? And it was just like my senses lit up, everything lit up, everything got more powerful, more amped up. It wasn't like I didn't travel to another world like DMT does, but it was a similar feeling. It was like a nostalgia that I had just awakened to something I had forgotten my entire life. And being that it felt like an orgasm, like my spine lit up like a lightsaber, my brain lit up like an orgasm, like fireworks in my head. Being that that's what it felt like, I'm going to go ahead and guess that Tantra would be a good way to train it, or a possible way to train it, to practice for it, to get it, prep it. Because that's what Tantra is, right? That's what I've never practiced Tantra. I wanted to talk about it with you because I don't know a lot about it.
Well, Tantra is pretty much, a buildup of energy within the body. It's very, very easy to start, like I've always told men to put the soles of their feet together, or even women, because your energy radiates from your body. But if you're locking these extensions of your body, and then it circles back around. And that's the idea of Tantra, is to not let loose of all the energy, but to let it build and build. But when I was doing my study on orgasm, out of hundreds and hundreds of men who, were involved in this, there was not one man I found that experienced that form of pleasure with any other partner than the one it happens with. So I do think it's kind of like a true love type thing, whether or not the partner feels that way. It's more of an internal thing. You're going to feel that with the person you love, and it can be falsified slightly for anyone who needs to have that bond of trust, and that is the whole point between BDSM. But it can happen naturally.
That's interesting, because I mean, what do you think about the concept of soulmates and such? Like, I mean, personally, I think that when we talk about soulmates, anybody that's in our life has got to be a soulmate. I mean, if we are traveling from life to life, then everybody's an actor in the stage play. But do you think that there actually are like built-in twin flame sort of things where you find that one person?
Well, I don't really give credit a whole lot to the twin flame idea. It's a rather new idea. I will reference a book, The Secret Language of Birthdays, Stars, and Numbers. It's a very large book, and if you look up your birthday, it will have in the right-hand corner a list of special dates. And there is a soulmate date. Okay, now soulmates, when you elevate yourself up to the 33rd level and you're in the presence of God, you see souls kind of floating towards him and jumping through. Those are soulmates. I've never once witnessed a soul reincarnating alone. Your soulmates are not always your lovers. Your soulmates are other souls who have been with you through many lives, and after a human dies, they don't progress until they have those that they love the most. And they'll wait an eternity on love. That's a beautiful idea. But there's been groups of 5 and 6 souls that I watched, and what they do is they wait and then they reincarnate together. They're in the same lifetime then, and they have a higher chance of finding each other. When I looked in that book, I only had about 300 Facebook friends, and there were probably 50 of them who had birthdays listed on my soulmate dates. And these people had very special bonds with me. They are all still with me 10 years after I did that project. And interestingly enough, all of my children were born on listed dates for my specific soulmates.
That's very cool. I'm pretty sure that's the book I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I thought you were, but I have a secondary book to that, the workbook journal, and it's the book I really love because it'll tell you a little bit more information. Like, it tells you the meaning of the day you were born. I was born on the day of poetic song, and the rhymes with me and the singing and the music and all of that. I did have both of those books at one time, but if anyone would like to check out either one of those books, you can enrich your life greatly. But as the subject of soulmates go, they do exist. I imagine your twin flame would be the one person you were meant to be with forever on a romantic basis. But I will tell you, I have had numerous people claim that I am their twin flame, and I never even had an attraction for them. And I have had numerous people profess that they had found their twin flame, and none of them are still together. So maybe that's why I discredit that idea. But as far as soulmates go, you can have many.
Yeah, that's what I think too. But as far as the twin flame thing goes, a story that I have, I'm not sure, I'm not going to say it is or isn't, but I had dreams for years and years about a girl, and everybody knows this. I told everybody, I'm going to find this girl. I'm in love with this girl in my dreams. She was my ultimate partner. And I searched for her, and I searched for her. I always thought I drew pictures of her. I had perfect pictures I drew that were some of the best things I've ever drawn. I used to be an artist. And I still am an artist. I work with.
Used to be. Did you break your hand?
But so I had these pictures. They were drawn perfectly. Now, when I met my ex-wife, I walk into this room and she's dancing. In my dreams, I was always dancing with this girl. I walk into a room, she's got a beer in her hand and she's dancing. And I say, fucking turn to my friend. I'm like, dude, that's her. And they look at her, they're like, holy shit, that's her, because I got the pictures I drew are fucking identical. I met her. We had kind of like a rivalry thing going where we flirted with each other, screwed with each other for a little while, and then eventually we got together, we got married. And when we got together, we got married the next fucking day after we got together. We were together for like 5 years, maybe almost 6 years. And then we split up for circumstances that are really confounded, and that's a whole other fucking story in and of itself. In fact, that's one of the biggest stories I need to tell, but it's too crazy for me to tell yet because people won't believe it. But long story short, we split up, and I actually hooked her up with my adoptive brother. I trusted him to take her, and they kind of had an attraction to each other before, so I hooked them up. They got together, they got married, they have a kid now. They're having a wonderful life, but she still is my closest friend and my ultimate partner. She's the person I go to for, if I need advice, if I feel down. So I do feel like that's a kind of a thing, because she and I are still partners, but we're not romantic. But I'll always be in love with her. So that's an interesting story, I think, because the fact that I had dreams about her for so long, that's implying that there was a connection built in, a destined connection, a fated connection built in. So I'm thinking that's got to happen with other people. Who knows? Maybe not everyone, but should be everyone, right?
Well, I've never dreamt of anyone I was supposed to be with. My dreams are typically nightmares. I don't want to remember them. But in my profession, I get a lot of people who call me, and we have visitors, children that they are to have, watchful angels. You really should pay attention to the times that you wake from these dreams, because that'll let you know the derivative of them. But we're getting off topic.
Well, something I wanted to raise, we're going to have to cut it soon because I need space to convert the video, but you said something about the 33rd level, and I have an idea of that. Now, it seems as though you might have mapped out this ether, this other world, or as you might call it, with these levels. Now, I used to try and do that too. I constructed a formula for my thesis, but I only had 13 layers. I'm wondering, you and I could talk about that, another topic for another video, talk about how you map it out, and maybe we can put it together, put our ideas together, and make use of it.
Well, it's very confusing because it's not this world. In this world, we have time and space, which are essentially the same exact thing in the scientific world. But in this, we go this way. And when I deal with the dead, it's like they are directly outside of us. So we're still going this way. But as far as the layers go, they go up and down. So it's very confusing because when you first start traveling throughout the layers, you really get the idea that you're going, forward or backward, somewhere on this dimension, but it's actually up or down.
Right. I see. My idea when I tried to map it out was I put this at the ground, and that this world, because I back then I still had the term physical in mind. I still thought there was such a thing as not physical, so I mapped it out as though there was a ground, and then there were layers that came off of it, as though this were the densest, the grounded, densest, most. I suppose you could say geometrically populated part of it, but it's not. I know that now. We've gone further with that, especially with the Monroe Institute. They've done a lot exploring this area. What I think I can only call it the ether. I used to call it the outer heaven, but now I'm thinking that this is the outer heaven, because that obviously would be what we think of as being the heaven. And this is
heavens are actually, the stars and space. And we do call it the ether because it is the ethereal layers. You don't travel in them with your physical body, you travel in them with your ethereal body, which is also called the astral body. And we are on layer 6.
We call it a phantom body, just like a phantom limb. because I mean that's what a phantom limb is. So that's the term we use for it. What we're trying to do, this is my beat specifically because I'm a language fanatic, is we're trying to simplify the terminology, like get the simplest possible terminology, and everybody can understand the phantom body because everyone understands phantom limb. But when you say astral body, it puts them off. So I mean, it's a matter of communication, you know.
Astral body, because in order to do it, you have to project astrally. You have to project yourself onto the astral plane. However, it's all the ethereal plane because only ethereal beings can raise all the way up to the max without help from an ethereal being. An ethereal being is pretty much an angel or a demon. But even the word ether, you know, some cultures there's an A there and some there's just E, but there's no A in ethereal. So it is very confusing. And whatever terms you decide on, I'm sure I would have a part in that. But I would gladly just use one universal term to end, mystery. But I think
that's what we're trying to do.
Part of this, little conspiracy, they just threw out all kinds of terms to keep people confused. But really, it's all the same thing.
Right. It's as I've said so many times, it's a Tower of Babel scenario. Like that's the perfect analogy to look at the situation we're in. Everybody's saying the same thing. They just use different terms. They have different perspectives, and they argue with each other because they think they're disagreeing. They're not disagreeing. Everybody knows.
Everybody thinks they're worshiping a different god. No, they're not. It's just different names and different prophets for different cultures and different rules. But it's all the same thing,
Right. It's where we apply or we not necessarily apply, but we. We apply the characteristic, or we assign the characteristic of a personality to a God figure, saying that it's some kind of a person, that it has judgments, that it's, that it has moral concerns. When we assign human characteristics to the concept of a God, that's where we have a problem. That's where things get out of hand.
Yeah, well, they do that to relate to the chosen people for that specific God. But we should have another episode about that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everything is intricately connected. Everything that's of any kind of value is important.
For the audience, you're going to find here throughout the course of Soul Mechanics that we have several courses speaking to several catalyst events, but they all come down to one. That's what I'm trying to get at, is everything's just the same thing. It's not, there is no division. That's why I have the symbol. That's why I got the tattoo. There is no division. It's an illusion. I don't want to say it's a hoax, but at this point it kind of is. There are people out there perpetuating this illusion. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, we use the illusion. It's the dream that we live in. It's ours. We created it for a reason. There's nothing bad about it, but we need to move forward in the sense that we all need to be on the same page, understanding what's really happening. And that's what we're trying to get at. That's what the initiative is here for.
So are you ready to wrap this up?
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to wrap this up. We'll talk about what the next subject's going to be, and we'll map it out a little bit. We'll actually get get a schematic in play. I'll make a new intro for us. And did you like the intro that I made?
I can't remember. I don't.
I liked it. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, and I couldn't fix it because the app screwed with me. It wouldn't let me fix it, but I'm going to figure it out for us. So thank you so much, Nori, for being here, Miss Merovingian.
And one thing just came to mind. It's something that I touched upon in the video I did on my own channel about S&M. It's also connected to Tantra. It's the exchange of energy when you do inflict pain. There's two different preferences. Some people, if they are more into the bondage being incorporated with the masochism, they do prefer the connection of your flesh. Like some girls really like to be spanked, but only with your hand. And it's not because it hurts less than a whip, but it's actually the connection of energy, and also the person expressing the energy when you are doing that, your energy is up. If your energy is up when you are making contact with somebody, more energy is going into them.
Right, and I'd like to point out there that if anybody has watched, anybody keeping up with the channel, where I made the video about the control dramas, the 6 primary control dramas, and then, you know, generally speaking, the habits that people use to draw attention and draw energy. Again, it's all the same thing. All of these things are habits. All of these addictions are habits to draw energy that ultimately you don't need to draw. You have it. You can make it. You know, you can produce it on your own. You don't need to take it from elsewhere. But I guess what we get at with this video is that just about everything that makes up our personality is an addiction of some sort or another. Like I said, I'm smoking cigarettes. I'd be a masochist. I chain smoke cigarettes. You guys are watching me do it. I know it's bad for me, but it's masochistic. Something I like. And I do it because I like it. It's not even like, it's more something that I willingly choose to do than even an addiction, really. But of course it is an addiction. But then I'm addicted to other things. I am addicted to sex. I try to keep away from that. I'm addicted to adrenaline. I need to keep away from that, but I need to make use of that energy. But, you know, that these are all addictions that we have. I'm sure Nori has addictions. Everybody has addictions. There's nothing inherently wrong with an addiction. It's just a habit. But
how do you think I know so much about them?
Say what?
So how do you think I know so much about them? Of course.
Yeah. Right,
because I'm an addict, and honestly, addiction is all relative to the heart chakra, and the heart chakra is the one that deals with, you know, spirituality. So it's always one or the other, you know, and that's why when people come off of drugs and they join AA and things like that, that's why it's a spiritual base, because they get that from, you know, a different source, but it's all matters of the heart.
And that's something, 2 things I'd like to say. One is that she and I, Nori and I, we've been through a lot of shit. You know, that's why we're here. That's why we're qualified to do what we do. We've been through most everything. So if you guys need anything, I'm here for you. I won't speak for Nori, but you always can contact me. And I know a lot of you do, but any of you are welcome to. I can help you out with things. I've been through almost all of it. I'm sure I can relate. But on the other hand, at the same time, I want to issue a slight, I guess this could be this episode's Spotter's Challenge. If anybody can tell me why that relates to the heart chakra, and I'll give you a hint. I did the Catalyst event videos that explained what the chakras are doing. So you get super extra bonus points. Maybe I'll even find a reward for you if you can tell me why what we just said relates to the heart chakra in the comments. Anyway, we'll have to clip it here. Thank you so much for being here. Always love to talk to you. Keelah Sly, Taerve, siari, Namasté.
Got that?
Yeah.